Okay, so today we're going to be diving deep into the Edward Snowden story.
Right.
You know, the NSA whistleblower who kind of shook things up back in 2013.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to be looking at how this massive leak of classified information, like how did it all begin? And we're
Yeah.
going to be pulling from the first episode of that Wondery podcast series,
Okay.
American Scandal, Edward Snowden.
Right. I thought it was fascinating how they started this podcast.
Yeah.
Instead of giving us Snowden's, whole backstory, they kind of just dropped us right into the action.
Uh-huh.
It's late 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and Snowden's, carefully moving a desktop computer
Okay.
through a secure government facility in Hawaii.
Like a whole desktop. Why not just, a flash drive or something smaller?
Well, that's kind of what's cool about this deep dive. The
Yeah.
podcast explains that he was trying to, exploit a security loophole.
Oh,
Back then, apparently the NSA didn't really have strict protocols for moving data within their own facilities.
Yeah.
They were more worried about
external threat.
external threats. Yeah.
So he's basically playing this super high stakes game
Exactly.
with the NSA's own security.
And the crazy part is it was super risky.
Yeah.
Snowden was working in this world of intense secrecy, right?
Right.
So anything unusual
Yeah,
could set off alarms.
for sure.
And there's this one point where he almost gets caught.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the podcast describes this scene Snowden gets stopped by the IT director.
Oh, no.
And the director is immediately suspicious
Yeah.
about this old computer he's carrying.
Yikes.
Talk about a close call.
Definitely a close call.
I think that moment just shows how much pressure Snowden was under.
Yeah.
He wasn't just copying files.
Right.
He was navigating this minefield
Oh, yeah.
of security and suspicious colleagues.
Totally.
It really sets the stage for the risk he was about to take.
Okay, so we've got Snowden kind of working in the shadows, right? But then the podcast introduces us to Laura Poitras, a documentary filmmaker.
Right.
And it's January 2013, and she's meeting up with Barton Gellman,
Yeah.
who's a national security reporter for the Washington Post.
Mm-hmm.
They're at a diner in Manhattan.
It's interesting how secretive this meeting is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Poitras, she's no phones, no notes,
Wow.
nothing that could
Compromise, though.
compromise. Yeah.
Wow.
So it turns out she was contacted by this anonymous source
Okay.
claiming to have proof of massive government surveillance.
On Americans.
Yeah, on American citizens.
Oh, so she needs Gellman's help to, figure out if this source is even legit.
Exactly.
So-
So they start going back and forth, with all this technical jargon,
Yeah.
acronyms, things like Boundless Informant, SSO, NSAT,
And with each one, it's the source's knowledge becomes more obvious.
Right, more and more apparent.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So what was Boundless Informant?
So imagine a tool that let the NSA track and visualize all the data they were collecting from around the world.
Uh-huh.
Basically, it's a massive dashboard
Wow.
showing where all their surveillance was focused.
It makes you wonder what else was hiding behind all those acronyms.
Right, and it's that slow reveal
Mhm.
that really pulls you in.
Yeah.
Poitras and Gellman, they're skeptical at first,
Right.
but the more they learn,
Yeah.
the more they realize this is huge.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then things take a crazy turn, right?
Yeah.
A few months later, Gellman's in Poitras's hotel room, and he's looking at this 8 gigabyte file
Mm-hmm.
full of classified NSA documents.
That's when everything changes, right?
Yeah,
Gellman's kind of overwhelmed at first.
just by the volume.
Yeah, the volume, but he starts digging in,
Yeah.
and he sees references to programs like Stellar Wind.
Stellar Wind, remind me about that one.
Oh, that was a super controversial program. It started after 9/11,
Yep.
and it basically let the NSA collect tons of data on American citizens.
Without warrants.
Without warrants.
Like phone records, internet activity, all of that.
Emails, everything.
All in secret.
Yeah. The public had no clue.
Wow.
And then Gellman opens this one document,
Oh, boy.
and it just takes things to a whole other level.
Yeah.
There's details about an active intelligence operation.
Really?
Even a photo of an undercover agent.
So now it's not just about, exposing the government. It's
Right.
about potential danger.
Yeah, exactly. The stakes are super high now.
Yeah.
You can feel the pressure building on Gellman and Poitras.
Yeah, I bet.
So then it's May 2013,
Okay.
and they're discussing the next move, which is a trip to Hong Kong.
To meet the source.
Yeah, face-to-face.
Why Hong Kong?
Well, the source specifically picked Hong Kong
Okay.
because of the legal situation there
Mm,
and its distance from the U.S.
okay.
He thought it was the safest place to meet.
I can imagine this meeting was like full of risks, right?
What if they got caught?
Exactly. What if Chinese intelligence got involved, right?
Yeah.
And that's where things get tricky.
Okay.
Gelman, after talking to his lawyers, realizes he can't go.
Oh, wow.
It's too risky for him,
Yeah.
so he backs out.
So Poitras has to find someone else.
Yeah, she's scrambling to find someone she can trust.
And that's where Glenn Greenwald comes in.
Yes. She contacts Greenwald,
Uh-huh.
the journalist. He was known for his criticism of the government.
Right.
He's hesitant at first,
Yeah.
but he agrees to at least talk to the source
Okay.
before making a decision.
Interesting that Greenwald was already kind of on the government's radar, right?
Yeah, for his reporting on national security.
Mm-hmm.
He knew the risks.
He wasn't naive to this.
Exactly. This wasn't some rookie jumping into a dangerous situation.
Right.
So the fact that he even considered it
Yeah.
really shows how committed he was to the story.
So we've got Snowden taking this huge risk.
Right.
Poitras determined to get this story out.
And Greenwald stepping into this, like, whole mess.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, things get even more complicated.
Okay.
Greenwald goes to his editor at The Guardian, Janine Gepson, presents her with these leaked documents.
Yeah.
She's immediately on board.
Wow.
But she insists on sending another reporter, Ewan McGaskill, to Hong Kong.
Why would that be a problem? I mean, more reporters mean more coverage. Right?
But in this case, it caused some tension.
Oh.
The source, who was still using the alias Verax,
Right.
had very specific instructions about the meeting.
Okay.
Changing things could scare him off.
Yeah.
And Poitras was really protective of her source.
I can see how that would cause a problem.
Yeah, they were all under so much pressure,
Yeah.
and trust was, like, the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So they came to a compromise.
Okay.
McGaskill would go to Hong Kong,
Mm-hmm.
but he'd stay separate from the first meeting.
Oh, okay.
He's delicate,
Yeah.
trying to balance everyone's needs, while also keeping the source safe.
Keeping everything on track.
Exactly.
So the stage is set, tensions are high.
Mm-hmm.
Poitras and Greenwald head to Hong Kong.
Yeah, and that's where the real cloak and dagger stuff starts.
Yeah, like what?
Okay, so they get to Hong Kong,
Mm-hmm.
and they get all these elaborate instructions from the source.
Like what kind of instructions?
They're told to go to this specific floor of this fancy hotel,
Okay.
ask about the restaurant, wait a certain amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
then look for a guy with a Rubik's Cube.
A Rubik's Cube. Really? That sounds like so out of a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
It shows you how paranoid the source was.
Yeah, I mean, given what he knew, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're in this conference room,
Ugh.
following these weird instructions,
Okay.
waiting.
And the podcast describes it as, like, super tense.
bet.
They're always looking over their shoulders like, are they being watched?
Right.
Is this a trap?
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, finally, the door opens, and this young guy walks in,
Okay.
fidgeting with the Rubik's Cube.
And this is him.
That's Edward Snowden,
Wow.
the source of it all.
And he's like way younger than they expected.
Yeah, he looks almost boyish.
I can only imagine their reaction.
I know, right?
Like they've been talking to this mysterious figure
Yeah.
and it's this like seemingly ordinary guy.
Exactly.
So what happens next?
So they all go to Snowden's hotel room, and it's like a tense journey.
Okay.
And once they're there, he starts taking all these security measures,
Like what?
putting phones in the mini fridge, jamming pillows under the door.
He doesn't trust anyone.
Not even the hotel staff, right?
Wow.
And it's in this like totally normal hotel room
Yeah.
with these makeshift security measures
Right.
that Snowden reveals his true identity to Poitras and Greenwald.
Wow.
And that's the beginning of this huge whistleblowing story.
What a start to the deep dive.
Right. And we're just getting started.
I mean, it's crazy to think about this young guy who looks like he could be, working at a tech startup,
Yeah.
having access to all this classified information,
Mm-hmm.
and the guts to leak it all.
It really is remarkable.
Yeah.
But, before we get too far into Snowden as this, like, global icon of whistleblowing,
Right.
the podcast kind of takes us back, right,
Right.
to his earlier years.
Mm-hmm.
And they paint a picture of this, like, really bright kid, super tech savvy,
Yeah.
and with this, like, deep sense of patriotism.
Didn't he drop out of high school?
He did, yeah.
Not exactly the typical path for someone who ends up at the NSA.
True, but he got his GED later,
Okay.
which, shows his determination.
Yeah.
And then in 2004, he joins the Army aiming for special forces.
Oh, wow.
But unfortunately, he gets a leg injury,
Oh, no.
and that kind of cut that dream short.
And that's what leads him to the intelligence world.
Yeah, eventually.
So he starts out as a security guard.
At an NSA facility, yeah.
Talk about an unexpected career path.
It is pretty wild, right? Yeah. But his tech skills are really what shine through.
Okay.
He moves up quickly,
Mm-hmm.
works for the CIA, and then gets a contractor position at the NSA.
Okay.
And it's important to note, the podcast makes it clear that Snowden wasn't like, this disgruntled employee from the start.
Okay.
He really believed in what the intelligence community was doing.
Especially after 9/11.
Exactly.
Like he felt that duty
Mhm.
to protect the country.
Yeah, but then, as he got access to more and more classified information,
Mm-hmm.
he started to see the true scope of these NSA surveillance programs.
And he didn't like what he saw.
No, he thought they were going way beyond, legal and ethical boundaries.
So it was this like internal struggle, this
Yeah.
growing disillusionment
Mm-hmm.
that made him become a whistleblower.
That's what the podcast suggests, yeah.
He felt he had to expose this like threat to American democracy,
He thought the public had a right to know.
even if it meant breaking the
Even if it meant breaking the law, exactly.
And this is where I think things get super interesting.
Yeah.
The podcast goes into the technology that even made mass surveillance possible.
Right.
We're talking advances in computing power, data storage, the whole 9 yards.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
The source material mentions programs like PRISM,
Oh, yeah, PRISM.
which basically gave the NSA a back door into the servers of these huge tech companies.
Like Google, Facebook, all those.
Google, Facebook, Apple. Yeah.
So they could just like get into anyone's emails, chat logs,
Browsing history, everything.
just like that.
Pre-
And this wasn't just limited to Americans.
No, they were collecting data on people worldwide.
It's kind of scary.
It's like something out of a dystopian novel.
It really is.
And then there's Upstream,
Upstream.
which intercepted internet traffic through fiber optic cables.
Wait, fiber optic cables, isn't that how most internet data travels?
Exactly.
So the government could basically tap into that.
Like listening in on a global phone call.
Wow.
Upstream let them collect massive amounts of data,
From anyone.
even people who weren't suspected of anything.
It's hard to even imagine the scale of that.
It's huge.
And it was all happening without anyone knowing.
No oversight, no accountability.
That's exactly why Snowden felt he had no choice.
He knew most people wouldn't understand the tech side of it,
Yeah.
but he thought they deserved to know.
How their government was using these tools.
Exactly.
Now, the podcast doesn't shy away from the controversy, right?
No, not at all.
Some people see Snowden as a hero, others a traitor.
It's a tough one.
Where do you land on that?
I mean, it's complicated.
Yeah.
There's no question that Snowden broke the law
Right.
and maybe even put national security at risk.
Yeah.
But his leaks also showed us this government overreach
Mm-hmm.
and started a global conversation about privacy.
So how do we balance that?
It's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Security versus privacy. And it's worth remembering that Snowden struggled with this too.
Yeah.
He wasn't just some reckless guy.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing
Yeah.
and what the consequences could be.
Choose journalists carefully.
Yeah. He wanted them to handle the info responsibly,
And he went to Hong Kong.
knowing he could be arrested.
In the U.S.,
Yeah.
the podcast also talks about the pressure on the journalists
Oh, yeah. They were accused of helping a traitor.
and putting national security at risk.
Exactly.
It's pretty amazing that they stuck to their decision to publish,
They argued the public had to know.
consequences or not.
Yeah. They faced a lot of criticism,
Yeah.
but they stuck to their principles.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit.
Yep.
What happened after the story broke?
Well, it was chaos at first.
Yeah.
The NSA, they were suddenly in the spotlight. They had to defend themselves,
Yeah.
explain what they were doing.
Damage control.
Totally.
Yeah.
Government officials said Snowden had damaged national security,
Okay.
put lives at risk.
All right.
But they also admitted that maybe they needed more transparency.
About these programs.
Yeah. And more oversight.
So did anything really change?
There were some reforms,
Okay.
although some people say they weren't enough.
Like what?
Well, the USA Freedom Act was passed in 2015,
Oh, okay.
and it did limit some of the bulk data collection,
Mhm.
but it also left some loopholes
Oh, so surveillance could continue.
in different forms. Yeah.
It was a step, I guess.
Yeah, step in the right direction.
But maybe not enough.
Right.
I guess the question is, how do we balance security and privacy?
It's a question of our time, right?
Yeah.
In a world where technology is always changing and our digital footprint is like constantly growing,
Yeah.
it's a tough one. And there are no easy answers.
Yeah.
But Snowden's story reminds us that we can't just trust those in power blindly.
Right.
We have to stay informed, get
And
involved.
then challenge the way things are
Yeah, demand accountability and transparency,
and fight for our privacy.
online and offline.
So last we heard, Snowden was, on the run, right?
Yeah.
Trying to avoid those espionage charges in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Did he just disappear?
Well, not really. He actually ended up in Russia.
Russia?
Yeah, they granted him asylum.
And he's still there.
He's still there today.
That's kind of a twist considering Russia's own, history with surveillance and human rights.
It definitely adds like another layer to this whole thing.
Yeah, it's almost ironic.
Right. The guy who exposed U.S. surveillance
Yeah.
ends up in a country known for its own surveillance.
Some might say it hurts his credibility.
Yeah, some people see it that way.
But others might say it shows his commitment.
To exposing this stuff no matter where it happens.
So what's life like for him in Russia? Is it, luxury, or is he constantly worried?
From what I understand, it's more like a life in limbo.
Limbo.
Yeah, he's not exactly free.
Right.
He has to be super careful about what he says, what he does.
Yeah.
He knows the Russian authorities are watching him.
So he's gone from one cage to another.
In a sense, yeah, but he's also become like a symbol
Of what?
resistance,
Mm-hmm.
an icon for people who care about privacy.
And he keeps speaking out against surveillance.
Yeah, and pushing for stronger privacy protections.
So what about the long-term impact of his revelations? Has anything actually changed in how governments and tech companies use our data?
Well, it's kind of mixed bag.
Mixed bag how?
On one hand, there's definitely more awareness now.
Of the surveillance issues?
Yeah, and some governments have made changes,
Okay.
like the EU with their GDPR.
GDPR, that's the one that gives people more control over their data, right?
Yeah, you have the right to see your data, correct it, even delete it.
It's a big step forward
Definitely.
for data privacy.
But,
You said mixed bag.
well, the technology keeps advancing, right?
Right.
Facial recognition, AI, the Internet of Things,
Yeah.
all that stuff creates new challenges for privacy.
And then there are the corporations.
Right, like Google and Facebook.
Yeah, the ones that collect all that data on us.
Exactly, they're gathering info on everything.
Our searches, our shopping,
Our social media.
and they use it for ads, right?
Yeah, to personalize things, even predict what we'll do next.
It's kind of like our every move is being tracked.
Analyzed and, turned into profit.
And most people don't even realize it
They just click accept on those cookie things.
without even thinking.
Exactly.
So what can we do? Are we just stuck?
I don't think so. I mean, Snowden's story shows us that we have power.
Okay.
We can demand change.
Oh.
We can support groups fighting for privacy.
What?
Like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the ACLU.
Yeah.
We can talk to our elected officials, push for better laws.
And be more careful about our own data.
Yeah, all of that.
So it's not just about being mad, it's about doing something.
Exactly. We can't just sit back and let our privacy disappear.
It's like Snowden said, saying you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is like saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say.
Powerful, right.
It is.
Privacy isn't just about hiding things.
Yeah.
It's about having control.
Over our own lives.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think Snowden's story makes us think,
About what?
about the balance between security and freedom,
Mm-hmm.
about how technology affects our lives,
Yeah.
and about the power dynamics between us and, institutions.
It's a story that's still going on.
And it's up to all of us to decide how it ends.
This has been such an amazing deep dive.
Yeah, it really has.
We covered so much, the tech stuff, the ethics of whistleblowing.
The future of privacy,
It's a story with something for everyone.
whether you're into tech, politics, or just care about your own privacy.
To our listeners, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
We'll see you next time for another exploration.
Of your source material.